So I guess I'll start. I'm Marcela Giesche, and I moved to Berlin about 6, 7 years ago. And after 3 years, I found this wonderful open space, which used to be a carpentry. And I decided the space was just calling for to be used creatively and for dance practices. And so I got a group of people together to renovate the space, and yeah, we kind of poured our hearts into that. And now it's yeah, 3 years later, and people are coming and going and working on their work as they're here. Yeah, and I don't know, I guess about 2.5 years, no, 1.5 years ago or so, I met Mark. He started to come to our performances regularly.
It's actually more than that. It's been over 2 years now, because that's when I came with Zoe.
Okay, yeah.
So to the Dance Tech residency.
Yes, which was started like between us, you and me, Mark.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and he's been coming for a while, and I've also been personally interested in the effect of technological elements and surroundings on body language and behavior and kind of patterns of awareness, and how this affects your daily bodily state, because we're so connected to it every day. And Mark is very involved with that, of course, you know. And so we together designed a residency at the Lake Studios. The title is Technology, the Body, and Choreography. And Mark generously sponsored the first 2 residencies that could take place at Lake Studios, where we had an open call, and we selected 2 groups of people to develop their work here.
Out of 50 applications, in fact.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. So, Mark.
Well,
you might not need a lot of introduction.
I can say it very shortly. I mean, I am Mark Coniglio. I'm a composer and media artist, and co-founder and co-director of a dance group called Troikatronix. It's been doing work with media for about 1 billion years. But I'm also on my other hat that I wear is that I'm the creator of the software Isadora, and sell that software, and that's a business. And so it's an interesting. I must say that. I was really happy to sponsor this, not only because I believe in the work, but mostly because I believe in Marcela and what she's created in the situation here. Because there's lots of places that have studios and places to rehearse and residency programs, but the level of openness, generosity, and rigor that I find at this particular place is why I wanted it to be here, and why I was super happy that it was here. And I think that, but to back off a little bit, I mean, there were a lot of things that came together at just the right moment, and I think it's worth acknowledging that, in fact, I think, if I'm not wrong, you were the one to make the suggestion to do this first, so I think we have to point the finger back at you for a moment. But we were also planning, or starting to plan, the idea of having the first ever international gathering of Isadora users. Mm-hmm. And the producer of that event, Xenia Lydell, was the one who actually said to me, well, why don't you use the power of that to allow you to support the work you care about? So what we're having, parallel to this, I mean, they're doing their residency, but at the completion of that, we have that gathering, which includes every evening performances, and will include the first performances of the work that they've made here. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's like really quite a dream come true, because we take the energy that comes from people, the users of Isadora, all who are creative designers and artists of all kinds, and we combine that with supporting work that I am super passionate about. So the opportunity came at exactly the right moment to combine all of that into one thing, or 5 things, whatever you want to call it. And so it's, you know, it's a cliche word, but it was a truly synergistic set of things that came together to make it happen. And
yeah, and one of the things that I think it was really interesting is kind of how this event can be, or this part of the whole event that you both have put together, is all be focused in body, movement, and choreography in relationship with technology. Because, you know, you can have a lot of Isadora users, but then the specificity of having kind of Lake Studios involved, and Marcela and Dance Tech and all that creates this, perhaps the framework that the work is about this kind of investigation. Would you think?
Yeah,
that?
I actually, because it might not be clear, I want to throw this in.
Yeah.
The choice of who was doing the residency had nothing at all to do with Isadora. In fact, nobody that's doing anything in any of the performances is actually using Isadora. So it was purely about artistic quality and nothing else. I mean, maybe next year someone will actually be using Isadora, but this year it's not. But that wasn't the point in the way that any of the selections, whether it was for the residency or the other performers we chose, that wasn't part of it. Because I wanted the user. My goal was to have the users see the best work I could show them.
That's beautiful. And I remember, you know, when I took your workshops, I think probably in 2001 or something, that I was using Jitter. You know, and you were totally cool about it, and then, you know, we was okay, what can we do with this, and the interface, and that was actually extremely open and
but that's exactly it though. That's why I also it's open at Lake Studios too. I mean, there's a lot of hookup there.
Yes. So then, you know, I think that we can.
I wanted to like add one thing about the studio in particular, and like the kind of atmosphere that is existing here. There's something about the fact that it's in a particular. It's also about the context that the work is taking place, that also influences a lot the development of the way the body reacts to things, but also in interaction with technology. And I have this sensation that this particular place has a very kind of calm but like very alive and very sensitive energy, like in a way that you can, when you work in the studios, you really can feel your body very well. Like there's just something like a kind of clarity that I also find in my own rehearsals, and it might have to do with the architecture, it may have to do with other things, but I just think that kind of like the architecture and the surrounding space really also provides a really good framework to engage with stimulation and technological elements, because often like we're working with that stuff and we're in the center of a city, like with a lot of information around, and you're still in this buzz all the time. And so this contrast of having the nature and the lake and this kind of like birds, you can all the time hear birds outside, and you can hear the rain on the roof. Like I just think that these sensitive and sensitizing things that are around you help a little bit to focus, because that stuff can tend to get also super overwhelming. So that's just one thing I wanted to say about the space itself, and like why I find it's a really fruitful like connection between these two, body and working with technology.
What the people don't know is like all these birds are robots.
Well, I was going to say, or the shorthand way that I tell people about it, because I've done 3 residencies here, is that there's just a magic vortex of creativity in the center of that dance floor. And I say that as a shorthand, but everything she's saying is really true. And it's especially, I think, interesting that it is a technological residency, yet you're surrounded by nature. It's not in the center of Berlin, it's someplace else, yeah?
Yes. No, that's great. So then what was, let's say, to your perspective of, okay, there will be a time and space for this artist, that they will be working for how long? So can you give us a little bit of that, and kind of the perspective of what is holding them there? And Mark is there, you know, or how much do they have support? Are they on their own, etc.? Okay.
Wow, that's a lot. Well, the frame of the residency is around 100 hours of working time per month. So it's 1 month divided between the 2 studios. And there's also always plenty of evening space and other times available for the artists to use if they want to go deeper or work more time. And then also the idea was that Mark would be around sometimes to do a bit of mentoring. The other kind of support is that we provide like as much as possible the equipment that they need. Like I mean, we have 2 beamers, and more than that they had to bring themselves. Yeah. But there's different types of equipment, and also just being kind of present and available. Like me personally, kind of on a daily basis to just kind of help them with one thing or another, or if they need a piece of wood, like the kind of really small things that make a kind of a big difference, that you don't have to like run to the store, but there's just a lot of everyday objects and kind of things that you might need just lying around, because we've collected so much through these 3 years, and it's a kind of it's like a resource space for that. And I'm pretty much present like so I feel also very invested and kind of connected to the processes that are happening with each of the artists. Personally.
So in the last 3 minutes that we have, I would like to kind of also aim also with Mark, that you had been for so long you are one of the pioneers, I always use that word, of this field of inquiry. So I think it's a really interesting opportunity now to kind of perhaps reassess or see as the people reinventing the wheel, or what is this point, and perhaps talk a little bit of about the artist, and we will have opportunity to talk to them.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting reading the 50 proposals. I felt like there were, again, this thing of like, there's been a lot of research done, and somehow this is a big concern of mine. That knowledge isn't being passed along somehow, because I saw a lot of things that for me were quite familiar, that I felt had been investigated before. I feel like we made our choice primarily, on the idea, again, that one of them had this kind of deeper thought about what the technology was. It was kind of bubbling up from below, and movement was such an important, in the foreground, let's say. And with the other piece, the augmented reality piece, also movement is very important, but it's really looking at a technology. I think it's important to look at devices, because they change the way that we socialize, they change the way we interact. So we also need to look at dance through it and see what that's doing. And so I felt like they were really at two different polarities that I felt were interesting, and so we chose them for those reasons. And I think, but I hope this grows. I hope it can happen again. I hope that next year we're doing it in a bigger way. And because what I think is that I would still love in the future to seek funding to bring some of the people that have been in this field for so long, and all the names that I am thinking of, and bring them together with a residency where we're all here together, and that knowledge transfer. I would like to facilitate knowledge transfer from people that have done this work, so that we see those people building upon what things we had researched before. That would be like a next step for me that I would be really excited to take. But in the end, I mean, I think they're going to make an interesting piece, and I think that it's important that at the end there's a public showing. That was another part of the component about it that makes it really important. Let's show what we did, and let's see where we're at, and really assess what's happening.
So can you tell the dates? So there will be showings, and where those showings will be?
There will actually be a showing already this Friday. It's the Unfinished Fridays performance series, and the two artists are showing like excerpts or kind of introductions to the ways that they're working, and then there's an audience feedback after, and that's at Lake Studios on Friday,
July 15th.
July 15th.
Yes.
And then at the end of the month, Lake Studios is moving to Ufer Studios, and there will be 3 performance evenings on the 28th, 29th, and 30th of July. And the information you can find on the... And
that's when the crowds also will join with the people from the kind of world uses of Isadora. It's towards the end of the month.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, during these performances, all the people who bought 3-day passes already got tickets to the shows, so they will be coming, and so we have they're actually pretty full. So if you want a ticket, you should get one now. And
yes.
And then after that final performance, the kind of closing performance of the Werkstatt is with Lillevan, the video artist of Lillevan, who's making a new piece just for this event, and that's going to be the kind of final moment of the Werkstatt part of it. So that's on Saturday night, the 30th.
Well, that sounds really great. And then, I like that also that what you're doing, both kind of seeing to the future, like in a way there will be perhaps the opportunity to have, again, open applications or reflection about what went on in this gathering for next year.
She doesn't know how hard it's going to be. She doesn't know how hard it's going to be to get rid of me now.
Why would anyone want to get rid of you?
But I tell you, the thing you didn't ask was, and please don't ask, you can't imagine how much it costs to move the lake to the Ufer Studios. Yes. That's really expensive.
But at least, you know, they have a canal.
That's true.
You know, you can pass by. Yeah, so anyway, so I think that one of the things that is beautiful is how, you know, I think that is always a very important part of the inquiry, is like how much the tension between whatever we think is natural and whatever we think is technological, you know, and artificial. So it's something that I feel that I'm really interested in. You know, I also living in the woods and doing this, a lot of, you know, technologies of the mind, how I call it, you know, and we have this idea of natural, you know, but it's interesting, you know, it's interesting to feel the contrast or the tensions between that.
But and not only that, but I think one of the things I'm happiest about with the two of us working on this together is that in the end, I'm a technological artist. Even though I have thought about the body a lot, I don't think about it the way she thinks about it. And because she's an artist in her own right, of course, and really thinks in such a profound way about the body. And that's the discussion that I want to see happening, is that discussion. So I figure as these two people starting this, that's hopefully going to bleed into everything that's happening around it. Yeah.
And I think, you know, in the two artists that you have chosen, I see this fundamental question. One, what is reality? You know, augmented reality. What is that we're augmenting? What is mediation? Is always happening. Is the body part of the mediation? And the other, you know, is this idea of minimalisms and, you know, and loops and counts and mathematical structures. And I of course, there is a full relationship with all ideas of computations or how computation has been evolving. So it's a really, I like that kind of the choosing the more foregrounded dance or movement and the less movement. But you see, there is something there. There is some kind of quality that is patterns, structures, you know, some kind of mathematical orders, you know, etc. So anyway, so I think that that's really, really interesting. You know, that I think is for me as a part of this field is so important part of the conversation. You know, how the body gets artifactually modified through choreography, and then how we create technological ideas of nature, thinking about systems. You know, those are, it's all like that, but one is feeding each other.
Yeah.
And
no, because I think that choreographies and all these patterns that we kind of engage in, they also at some point they become like innate, like they become habits as well. So I think just by choreographing something, it gets like deeper into your system and also into your perception, and then that changes the next thing that you do, you know, whether you want it to or not somehow.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, and you know, I'm happy to be here this way, you know, and be there this way with you. You see, here and there became fused. How they used to say, collapsing in space and time. And anyway, so so I hope that I can be there next year. I think it will be possible to plan it, and so this is great, and I'm really happy about all these developments.
Yeah, us too.
Thank you so much, Marlon. We owe this to you too.
Well, no, thank you, and I'm really happy, you know, of the synergies to be able to, you know, to have facilitated or created a space for synergies. So that's the point.
I think in our case we should change it from synergy to moglize.
Moglize. Moglize. Yeah, so something like that. All right, so very nice. See you soon. Bye-bye. Ciao.
So I guess I'll start. I'm Marcela Giesche, and I moved to Berlin about 6-7 years ago, and after 3 years, I found this wonderful open space, which used to be a carpentry, and I decided the space was just calling to be used creatively and for dance practices, and so I got a group of people together to renovate the space, and yeah, we kind of poured our hearts into that. And now it's 3 years later, and people are coming and going and working on their work as they're here. I don't know, I guess about 1.5 years ago or so, I met Mark. He started to come to our performances regularly.
It's actually more than that. It's been over 2 years now, because that's when I came with Zoe.
Okay.
To the Dance Tech Residency.
Yes, which was started like between us, you and me, Mark.
Yes.
And, and he's been coming for a while, and I've also been personally interested in the effect of technological elements and surroundings on body language and behavior and kind of patterns of awareness, and how this affects your daily bodily state, because we're so connected to it every day. And Mark
Coniglio. I'm a composer and media artist, and co-founder and co-director of a dance group called Troikatronix that's been doing work with media for about 1 billion years. But I'm also on my other hat that I wear is that I'm the creator of the software Isadora, and sell that software, and that's a business. And so it's an interesting, I must say that I was really happy to sponsor this, not only because I believe in the work, but mostly because I believe in Marcella and what she's created in the situation here, because there's lots of places that have studios and places to rehearse and residency programs, but the level of openness, generosity, and rigor that I find at this particular place is why I wanted it to be here, and why I was super happy that it was here. And I think that, but to back off a little bit, I mean, there were a lot of things that came together at just the right moment, and I think it's worth acknowledging that, in fact, I think, if I'm not wrong, you were the one to make the suggestion to do this first, so I think we have to point the finger back at you for a moment. But we were also planning, or starting to plan, the idea of having the first ever international gathering of Isadora users. Mm-hmm. And the producer of that event, Xenia Lydell, was the one who actually said to me, well, why don't you use the power of that to allow you to support the work you care about? So what we're having, parallel to this, I mean, they're
very involved with that, of course, you know. And so we together designed a residency at the Lake Studios. The title is Technology, the Body, and Choreography. And Mark generously sponsored the first 2 residencies that can take place at Lake Studios, where we had an open call, and we selected 2 groups of people to develop their work here.
Out of 50 applications, in fact.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. So, Mark.
Well,
you might not need a lot of introduction.
I can say it very shortly. I mean, I am